In the last lesson, we looked at how we can use native Node modules that were bundled with Node.js in order to use libraries of code that we didn't write, but somebody else wrote in order to execute commonly used bits of functionality. Now, in this lesson, I want to talk about NPM, which is a package manager for external modules. So modules that anybody could build that you could incorporate into your projects. Now, NPM itself actually stands for Node Package Manager, and it's currently the world's largest collection of these packages of code. So why would you want to use a package manager anyways? Well, let's say that if you were building a Lego house and it's a bit of work putting it all together. Now, let's say that you want to have some trees around your Lego house as well. Now, you could spend the time and energy figuring out how to put those trees together, or you could simply go onto NPM and find a tree package and you can simply incorporate it and add it to your project. And it's exactly the same thing with code. The packages on NPM are bits of reusable code that somebody else wrote. And using NPM, you can incorporate those packages into your own projects, saving you the time and effort that's required to write those bits of code yourself. Now, NPM actually gets bundled with Node. So when we installed Node, we already installed NPM. Now, I'm going to delete those two files that we created in the last lesson. And I'm also going to split screen my Hyper.js with Atom. So that means that you guys can see both of them on the same screen, which should make it easier to figure out what's going on. Now, I'm going to clear my console so that I start off with a clean slate and making sure that you're still inside the intro to Node directory. We're going to initialize NPM by saying npm init. And when I hit enter, you can see that it's going to run through a utility. It's kind of like the wizard that you get on Windows when it tries to help you set something up. So the first thing it asks me is, what do you want to call your package? And they give you a suggestion inside these parentheses. Are you okay with calling it intro to Node? Which I'm fine with that, so I'll just hit enter. And then it asks me what's the version of your project, and I'm happy with 1.0.0. Now, the next thing is the description of your project. So let's say this is a intro to Node project. And then that becomes the description. The entry point will refer to your main JavaScript file. And I've called it index.js. That's their recommended name as well. So I can just hit enter as well. Test command, I'm going to ignore. So I'm just going to hit enter. Git repository, we also don't have one, but we will talk about it a lot later on. So we're going to skip this as well. So just hit enter. Keywords, hit enter to ignore. And then author, I'll just put my name, or in your case, you would put your name. And finally, license ISC, that's fine, hit enter. And now it's compiled all of this data together. And you can see that it's got a name, it's got a version, it's got a description, and then it asks you, is it okay? And if you hit enter, then that means it's yes, and that's now done. So that process has created this file called package.json. And this is a description of all of your NPM packages so far. Once we start installing external packages, they will also show up in this file. So enough talking, let's go ahead and install an NPM external module. So if you head over to npmjs.com, then you've got this big search bar where you can search for all the packages that they contain. And at the time of making this, there are 650,000 NPM packages. So that's a lot to play with. Now, the one that we're going to check out is we're going to look for something that will generate superhero names. So I'm just going to type in superhero names. And the first package I get is something called superheroes. And if you click on it, there's a description that tells you how this package works. So in order to install it, you write npm install superheroes. In order to use it, you require the module, and then it has a method called .random that will generate as an output a superhero name. And with all of the NPM modules, you can see that there's extensive documentation on what you can do with it and how you can install it, related modules, and a whole bunch of things. And I'm going to show you how we can use it. So firstly, as with any NPM module, we first have to install it. So to install it, we just make sure that we're, again, inside the right directory, so our project folder. And then we write npm install, and then we write the name of the module, which in this case is called superheroes, plural. So superheroes. And make sure that you spell it exactly the way that you see it over here, including any capitalizations or dashes that they may have. So now if I hit enter, it will go online and it will download that module. And you can see that we now, in our package.json, have a dependency. So our project now depends on a module. And that module is called Superheroes version 1.0.0. And you can see over here, we get a few warnings and a few notices. Don't worry too much about that. Once we learn about GitHub and Git and version control, then we will get rid of these warnings. At the moment, it's not going to affect our project or our code at all. So don't worry. So now that we've installed our superheroes package, so if we go into index.js, we're now going to delete this code, which was using an internal Node.js module, and we're going to instead require this superheroes module. And you can see they clearly documented this is how you might use it. So we'll create a var called superheroes, and we're going to set it to equal require the module superheroes. So now that incorporates this module into our current project, and we're able to use it by tapping into this .random function. And all it does is it generates a random superhero name as the output. So let's write superheroes, which is our superheroes module, dot to tap into one of its methods. And the method is called random. Now this as an output generates a random superhero name. So we're going to store that output into a variable, and we're going to call it my superhero name. So now we have installed the superhero package, we have included it in our project, and we now are using it to generate a superhero name. Now we should log that superhero name into our command line or our console so that we can see it. So let's simply log my superhero name and let's hit save. And now we can run our code by saying again, node index.js. So if I hit enter, you can see we get a name called free. It's not a very good superhero name. Let's try again. What about the next one? Dragonfly. Oh, I like that. Let's try again. Iron lad. Yeah, not feeling it. But in this lesson, you've seen how we can go onto NPM, we can search for packages that might interest us, and very often I will spend a lot of time on here just window shopping, browsing for packages that might inspire my next web project. So the process of incorporating an external package was firstly using npm init in order to initialize a package file. And you can see that this is called package.json. And JSON is just simply a file format that's used to organize data. And it looks almost a little bit like JavaScript objects, where you have a key and you have a value. And it's just a very simple way of structuring data. And after we initialized this file, we then installed an external package that we wanted, which was called superheroes. And that gets added in as a dependency to our project. So our project now depends on this external package. And it depends on it because we are requiring it inside our project. And then we're using its random function in order to generate a superhero name. So we literally had to do no work at all in order to have a bit of functionality that will just keep generating new superhero names every single time we run this code. Now, as a challenge, I want you to do this yourself. So in addition to superheroes, there's also an NPM package called supervillains. And this allows you to generate supervillain names, which I think is going to be a lot better than the sort of stuff that we're coming up over here. It's not looking that great. I'm not very keen on any of these names so far. Maybe we'll have more luck with the supervillains. So I want you to install this package to our current project, and then I want you to use it to be able to console log some supervillain names. So pause the video now and complete this challenge. All right, so after seeing the process of installing an NPM package, I just wanted you to try it out yourself, just so that you can give it a go yourself and see how easy it is. So over here, you can see that in order to install, all we had to do is write npm install supervillains, and we do that inside our command line. So over here, I'll write npm install supervillains, making sure that I'm spelling it right. And now it goes onto npm, fetches the package, and installs it into our project. So now inside our package.json, we now have this dependency listed. And inside our node modules folder, you can see that there's a whole bunch of things, but we've also got our superhero and supervillain packages. Now, the reason why there's so many other packages is because these guys themselves also have dependencies. So our project depends on superheroes, but superheroes will have its own dependencies. And then these packages might have their own dependencies, and it's kind of like Inception. There's just many, many layers. And in the end, we end up with all of these packages, which we have to incorporate in order for all the modules to work. So now inside our index.js, in order to use this new package, we of course have to require it. So I'm going to do it up here next to where we've got our superheroes package. So I'm going to say var supervillains equals require, and then the name of the package, which is supervillains. Then I'm going to check their documentation. So again, it has a method called .random, which generates a random supervillain name. So I can simply write var my supervillain name is equal to supervillains.random. And now, in addition to console logging my superhero name, I'm also going to console log my supervillain name. So now if we save this file and we execute it inside our command line, then we can simply say node index.js. And if I hit enter, I should get two names this time. One is my superhero name, which is kind of naff. And the other one is my supervillain name, which sounds a lot better. For some reason, I am a lot more drawn to these supervillain names. Captain Boomerang, the Scorpion, Electrocutioner. Yeah, I'm really liking this. All right, so I hope this lesson was interesting, and we've learned a whole bunch of things in this module, including how to get started using Node, using Node's native packages, as well as NPM's external packages. And this really is going to be our superpower that we're going to leverage to build really awesome websites without having to spend a lot of time and energy and effort ourselves. So in the next module, we're going to look at a Node framework that's really, really popular. And if you're going to be using Node, you're going to be using it, and it's called Express. So for all of that and more, I'll see you on the next lesson.